muted while we are going through the presentation, and then of course later when we are in Q&A, you're welcome to come off of mute and ask questions. But please leave it muted for now. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our MPH Practicum chat. Today is a little different than the other chats we've had in the past, as our main focus today is how to be successful once in your practicum, whereas our previous chats have been about how to obtain your practicum and get everything set to begin successfully. As we move through our presentation today, please jot down any questions that you have, or you can feel free to enter them into the chat at any time, and we'll make sure to address them at the end. Your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are any aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the Online Accessibility Center or Human Resources if you are an SNHU staff or faculty member. The contact information for each of these departments is included on this slide. I am Jennifer, and I'm here with Hannah. We are part of the internship team within the Career Services Department at SNHU. We are here to support you, our Master of Public Health students. Our contact information is here on the slide. Please jot it down if you don't have it already. If your last name starts with A through J, I am your main contact. And if your last name starts with K through Z, Hannah is your main contact. Of course, if one of us is not available, the other is always happy to help. We are here for one-on-one support, so if you would like to schedule a call to discuss anything in particular about your situation, please feel free to email us with days and times that work best for you, and we'll get an appointment scheduled. Today, we are also joined by Dr. Gail Tudor, who will be engaging in our conversation and available for Q&A as well. In our chat today, we'll be providing a quick overview of the MPH practicum requirements, just a quick review of the basics, and then on to our main purpose for today's chat, which is to discuss tips for success while in your practicum, focusing on professionalism, staying on track, and what to do if a conflict arises, and how to get support and guidance as needed. As a starting point, I'm going to review some of the MPH practicum requirements. Hopefully, this is familiar information. You will need to complete 120 hours at your practicum site over 2 consecutive terms. The same site, same experience for both terms. You will also take 1 practicum course each term while completing the experience. The practicum courses are PHE 680 and 685. You should expect to complete discussions and assignments in these courses, where you will be reflecting on and reporting back on what you are accomplishing in your practicum. You will work to complete the artifacts outlined in your practicum plan, demonstrating your increased proficiency in the 5 competencies previously selected and outlined in your practicum plan. A reminder, the practicum is an opportunity for you to gain real experience in the field of public health. It's also an opportunity to receive mentoring and guidance from a public health professional. Apply learnings from coursework and build your professional credibility and network. So I have a question for you before we get into some details here. What does professionalism mean to you? So take a moment and just type in the chat some things that come to mind when you hear the word professionalism. Maybe what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it act like? Does it need to be anything long? Just some thoughts that come to mind. I see some typing. Let's see, we're going to give it a moment and see what you all come up with. Oh, I think we have a shy group. So, oh, I see. Oh, Hannah, thank you. Conducting yourself in a responsible manner. Yes, for sure. Oh, here's Jacqueline. The ability to solve problems with minimum assistance and be able to recognize the needs of the organization. That's great. Very thoughtful, Jacqueline. I love that. Any other thoughts coming to mind? In the essence of time, I'm going to keep moving on, and we're going to talk a lot about professionalism and hopefully give you some good ideas about this topic as we progress. Yes, Dr. Tudor, work products that I am proud of. That's awesome. So feel free to keep typing in the chat as you're thinking as we move along here. But I encourage you to keep this question in mind as we progress through our chat this evening. A few behaviors that I want to bring your attention to keep in mind for success, both in your practicum and beyond. First of all, be engaged. Show interest and enthusiasm. Make sure you're present. It's so easy to not be present these days with everything going on around us. Set and meet deadlines early on. Make sure you have a clear plan with milestones along the way, holding yourself accountable to meet the deadlines. Don't wait for someone else to hold you accountable. Listen actively. Listen to learn. Listen curiously and listen fully. It's not enough just to listen. We have to listen actively to make sure we're understanding and not missing important information. And finally, ask questions. If you don't understand something, ask clarifying questions. You'll see there's a fun little comic here on the screen about what happens when active listening isn't present. Messages are quickly and easily distorted. And unfortunately, this happens all too often. On a more serious note, though, why are we talking about this today? Unprofessional behavior can result in being fired and are not passing your course. Failure of the practicum is lost time and money. So we want to avoid that at all costs. Professional behavior applies to all you do. For example, if you are having challenges with your supervisor, you'll need to handle the situation professionally, even if the supervisor isn't. It's your responsibility to speak up in a professional manner, even if the other person isn't doing so. You are also representing your reputation, and you're representing SNU. Organizations and people in public health are very connected. So you are making a name for yourself in your practicum. And if you don't take this opportunity to create the right reputation, you could lose potential references and connections that you may need later. Ultimately, your practicum is your responsibility, and you are the leader of your own success. Hannah is now going to share some specific actions that you can take to build a positive image and reputation for yourself.
Thank you, Jennifer. Your practicum gives you the opportunity to begin establishing your professional reputation. The public health field is small, and you may be working with the individuals you intern with in the future. Here are some tips that can help you illustrate that you are a professional during your practicum. First, you want to dress the part. You should follow the organization's dress code. And if there's no dress code for that specific organization, you should follow the business professional dress code. Even if you are completing your practicum virtually or remotely, it is still important to dress professionally. At least from the waist up if you're sitting at a computer, but make sure not to stand up if you're wearing sweatpants. Next is timely and professional communication. Communicating effectively illustrates that you are a professional. You want to demonstrate that you have strong verbal and written communication skills. So with your written communication, Ensure that you proofread your work and the writing you submit is polished. Next is business etiquette. Please ensure that you are on time for your practicum and for all of your meetings. It's always best practice to plan to be a few minutes early to ensure you are not late. Being on time illustrates that your site supervisor that you are taking your practicum seriously and treating it the way you would a job. You can make a great impression and build your network by being friendly and polite to colleagues. Remember to act respectfully, regardless of whether you're speaking with the person at the front desk or the head of the organization. Next, you want to be open to feedback. The practicum is a learning opportunity. You will and should be receiving constructive feedback to help you grow your skills. Be open to learning and reflect on how you can incorporate the feedback you receive into your work. Your goal should be to always continue to make improvements. Next, you want to make sure you are present. If you're constantly checking your phone, your site supervisor and your colleagues will think that you're not working, or maybe you're not taking your practicum seriously. So put your phone away. Your focus should be on learning and helping the organization you're interning with. Finally, you want to make the work your focus. Your site supervisor and colleagues will notice your attitude and work ethic. You can represent yourself well by doing your best work. And don't be afraid to ask for questions when you have them. Your practicum is a learning experience, and asking questions when you are unsure will help you learn. Now, I want to share some tips that you can utilize to stay on track during your practicum. First is project clarity. Reflect back on your practicum plan often to ensure you're making progress on your projects, activities, and artifacts so that you're able to successfully meet the 5 public health competencies you have chosen. Remember that your practicum should be mutually beneficial. It's important that you are helping your organization. So if you are asked to help with tasks outside of your practicum plan, you should assist and use these additional opportunities to learn. However, if this gets overwhelming and you find that you are not making progress on your practicum plan, it's important to speak up about that. Next is setting and meeting deadlines. I recommend going over your practicum plan with your site supervisor and creating a timeline of when you plan to complete each project and achieve all of the artifacts. Keep in mind that you'll need to submit your artifacts in PHE 685 towards the end of the course. So you should ensure that your artifacts are professional and quality work. Remember, you'll need to complete your artifacts again to pass that second practicum course, PHE 685. But also, you'll need to complete them to fulfill the commitment you made to your practicum site. And don't forget to keep track of the hours you're completing and the progress you are making towards your practicum plan. You should share the time you spend on your practicum and your progress with your site supervisor. Towards the end of PHE 685, your site supervisor will fill out an evaluation where they indicate whether you completed the required 120 practicum hours, whether you achieved the 5 competencies from your practicum plan, and whether you completed your artifacts. Given this, it's going to be important to keep your site supervisor updated and informed. Next is communication. Now, this is very important. It's essential that you communicate regarding any questions or barriers. Your site supervisor cannot help you if you do not communicate with them. Likewise, your internship administrator and your instructor cannot assist you with any issues if you do not let them know that there might be a problem. Finally, is coursework. As I noted before, you're going to need to submit your artifacts in PHE 685 towards the end of the course. You also have assignments and discussions in your practicum courses. You should manage your time so that you can successfully complete the requirements of your practicum plan and also your coursework, and of course, being there to be helpful and supportive to your site. So now I'm going to talk about conflict, which is a type of barrier that can inhibit your success at your practicum. We see conflicts sometimes come up at sites, and they can get you off track with your practicum, especially if they are not resolved in a timely manner. Some conflicts are large, but others can be pretty small. However, all conflicts can cause issues. Conflicts could just be a miscommunication or maybe a lack of communication. It may feel easier to ignore conflicts and not address them, but they need to be resolved in order for you to be successful with your practicum. There are skills and behaviors that can be effective for conflict resolution. Skills may take time to master and are things that we can continue to get better at over time. Some skills to focus on include self-awareness. If you're in tune to your feelings, thoughts, and actions, you can recognize how other people see you. Is there anything that you can change to help resolve the conflict? Self-control. Even when you feel frustrated, it's important to exhibit self-control and professionalism. For example, if you're angry with someone, rather than raising your voice, take a moment, take a few breaths, and think about how you can speak in a calm and constructive manner before you begin speaking. Collaboration. The focus of your practicum is on learning. Think about how you can collaborate with your site supervisor and other individuals at your site to learn so that you can benefit the organization and successfully complete the requirements of your practicum plan. Problem solving. When a conflict arises, rather than assigning blame, brainstorm how you can address the conflict and solve it appropriately. Don't forget that you have people available to help you. Your practicum instructor and your internship administrator are great resources. Do not hesitate to reach out to us. Empathy. This is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Understanding how others are feeling can help you respond appropriately to the situation. Listening. Use your listening skills to understand the viewpoints of others. Active listening skills can be especially important if you are experiencing a conflict. There are also behaviors that can help with effective conflict resolution. These are our choice. We choose the way we want to act. For example, we choose whether we want to act respectfully or not. And here are some behaviors that you really want to focus on. Taking responsibility and ownership, engaging respectfully and listening to the other side, verbalize feelings, views, and needs in a respectful manner, remain calm and open-minded to find solutions. For me, it can be hard to remain calm sometimes when I'm in a conflict, but taking a few deep breaths can really help me in this area. When you are working through a conflict, it is important to reach out for support and guidance. Now I'm going to pass it over to Jennifer to provide some more information about this.
Great. Thank you, Hannah. That was a lot that you covered there. And so just give everyone a moment to digest a little bit. And I know some of what we're covering may seem like common sense. It may seem like you know this already, but it's important to reflect on these skills and these approaches, no matter how comfortable you are with them already. So we have covered a lot of what you should do, all important considerations for your success. Our goal, like yours, is your success, both in your practicum and beyond. So with that said, you have a great deal of support available to you. And Hannah mentioned some of that as she was going through the previous slides. But I'd like to take a moment now just to really call out the support that you have available if you need it. So first, your site supervisor. Your site supervisor has a stake in your success. It should be a mutually beneficial relationship. Your success means benefit for them and their organization as well. So when there is an issue, we suggest starting with professional outreach to your supervisor. If you have questions on your coursework, your course instructor is there to support you as well. So engage with your course instructor, seek clarification where needed. Hannah and I are here to support you. If there is a challenge that is unable to be resolved directly with your supervisor or your instructor, please reach out to us. We are also happy to help coach you in challenging situations. And sometimes just talking through the situation together can help quite a bit. Your academic advisor is also available for support. Your academic advisor is with you throughout your journey, so don't hesitate to reach out if they can be of support as well. A couple other areas of support that sometimes get forgotten. We have academic support, such as 24/7 drop-in tutoring or requesting written feedback on your work. Academic support also offers workshops and independent resources, or you can schedule one-on-one time with academic support. You can access academic support in Brightspace right in your course by selecting online student services. And finally, Help You is a free service for students providing mental health professionals and other well-being resources. Hannah has just added the link to their portal, and the phone number is also on the screen if you wanted to jot that down. So we touched on who to reach out to for help on the previous slide. Here, I'll take a moment to review some of the additional suggested resources. Again, I'll just remind you, academic support and Help You have resources available on their websites as well. You don't have to necessarily speak to someone to use those resources. And I encourage you to go explore their websites and have a look at what's there so you know what help is available if you do need it. Also in Brightspace, the MPH Resource Forum and the Research Resource Site have some great tools and resources to support you in your practicum. For example, you can find help with data analytics or research, and in the near future, some artifact templates will be added here. Hannah has added some more links for you, and so keep an eye on the chat because we're going to keep adding links in there for you to copy down and have for future reference. We've also listed some great articles and videos here under additional resources. These all have some great tips to help you develop the skills that we discussed earlier. And Hannah has just added those links to the chat as well. There's a lot of links to resources in the chat, as I said, so I suggest you take a moment, skim through them, maybe copy them down and save them in a Word document so you have them handy. Just to review what some of these links are, owning your behaviors as a way to control your success. The first one listed there is one of my favorite TED Talks. This one is definitely bookmark worthy. We also included a LinkedIn learning on communicating with confidence. Oftentimes, a lack of professionalism in communication is due to a lack of confidence. So there's some good guidance and advice here to help you build that confidence so you can gain comfort. There's also a quick article on choosing your words. That one is kind of a fun one, helping you to kind of find the right words, the positive words, the most impactful words. It's an important skill that can be developed. Also an article with tips on calming down. This is another one of my favorites. That's a good idea to bookmark. It has some really useful, easy tips to help you reduce stress. And finally, there is a guide to time management with some great, easy to implement tips for controlling your time. So I encourage you to take a look at those when you have a few minutes here and there, and see if they can be helpful as you think about developing your skills further. So we are going to open up for your questions soon, but before we do that, we'd love to hear your thoughts on some real situations to get our conversation going. So this is where you start participating, hopefully, and we can get some engaging conversation. So you are welcome to come off mute to chime in. You can raise your hand. We'll call on you if that's more comfortable, or feel free to type some thoughts into the chat. So the first scenario I'd like to hear your thoughts on are, if you are in your practicum and you're at your site, you've been spending a lot of time shadowing. You're now 3 weeks into your practicum and you haven't yet started working on your projects. What would you do? So give that some thought. Maybe this is really happening to you, or maybe it will happen if you've just started your practicum last week. This might be something that you run into. So think about, what would you do if you were there, you're 3 weeks into the practicum, you've been spending a lot of time shadowing, learning things, but you haven't actually started working on any of your projects yet. Any ideas? Any thoughts? Oh, we have a very quiet group.
Just point out that this is a real life situation. This did happen to a student, and that's why we're bringing this up.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Maybe we've got some typing in the chat. So let's give it a moment. Keep thinking on it a little bit. And Cindy, great answer. I would talk to the site supervisor, right? And that, sounds like, maybe that's common sense, but you'd be surprised that, like Dean Tudor said, we do see this happen. And it creates a situation sometimes where students aren't sure how to handle it. So yes, reaching out to your supervisor and talking. Cindy, if you want to come off mute at all and tell us how you would approach your supervisor, or maybe what you would say, feel free to do that as well. Oh, I do see a hand raised here. Alicia, if you want to come off mute. Oh, maybe we have to take you off mute. I just realized that. Hang on, let me turn your mic on.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was actually going to say the same thing, but I forgot to lower my hand. So the question I would you asked the question, how would I handle that? What would I say? I
Mm-hmm.
would just let her know that, hey, 3 weeks into my training, and it's critical that this time spent, that I gain as much knowledge as I can. So um how how can we restructure the process in order for me to get like some hands-on training, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's a great approach, kind of bringing it back to the need to do more, right? And maybe I would add to that a little bit as well, just kind of directly saying, I'm concerned I'm falling behind, right? It's okay to say that. I'm concerned I'm falling behind in my projects. Take ownership of the situation, and ask for support in how, changes can be made to help you move forward. That's great. And go ahead.
I was just saying, always feel free to ask your supervisor, hey, can we have a meeting to go over my practicum plan?
Yeah, that's great advice. It's always, and I think Hannah mentioned that in her tips as well. Like, it's a good idea to sit down and go through the plan and set up some milestones along the way. One of the things that I often advise students to do, especially if they don't have everyday conversation with their supervisor, is to set up like a weekly check-in. Always have the plan available, always have the milestones and the goals available, and be able to, have that conversation around how you're doing in progressing towards the goal. Cindy, I don't know if you wanted to add anything more, but I think I made it so you can unmute.
Yes, I'm able to unmute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I totally agree with everyone. I feel like you have to have that real open communication with your site manager, supervisor, because they get inundated with other things as well, and you might not be the only person that might be, completing the practicum with them. So,
Right.
just touching base and letting them know, like, hey, these are my goals. These are things I need to accomplish, during this course. Um, can we work towards that? Because that experience that you're gaining, is what the whole point of this, course is. And you want to gain that experience, but you also want to show what you've learned from your experience.
Yes, that's an excellent point, Cindy. And also, reminds me of something else. And I know Hannah mentioned this as well, but something that's important is that, while you have your plan, right? And like you said, Cindy, you want to be able to show that you are gaining experience and being productive by moving forward in your plan. It is likely you're going to be asked to do other things while you're in your practicum, other tasks, join in meetings sometimes that aren't directly related to your projects. So I encourage you to see these as an opportunity to learn more, embrace the additional asks. But if it gets to be overwhelming and it's keeping you from progressing in your projects, making sure that you speak up. So good. Does anyone want to add any final thoughts on that scenario? Okay, I've got another one for you here. So in this next scenario, which also happens quite regularly, is instructions aren't clear on a project you've been tasked with. So you're not clear on what you've been asked to do. What would you do? Again, feel free to raise your hand, type in the chat. And remember, these aren't trick questions. Oh, Giovanni, please go ahead. Oh, let me see if I have to unmute you. Oh. Okay, Giovanni, see if,
Okay.
yeah, okay, good.
I would ask for a meeting with my site director to see if we can clear up some miscommunication and start there. And then if I have any other questions after, I'll be able to follow up as we go.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly right. Ask for that meeting. Especially if it's something that you need more time to talk through. You don't want to just kind of ask in passing or send an email if you need to have a longer conversation. So I think that's really important to ask, professionally, can you have a meeting to discuss further? And normally people aren't going to say, no, I'm not going to explain it to you. They're going to be very open and accepting of that request. So good. Thank you, Giovanni. Anyone else want to add to that? Oh, Alicia, go ahead.
I think at the start of our training, where we can probably like request like on a weekly basis where we can meet with our supervisor to discuss any issues or concerns we may have. So we know there is a set time, even if it's a 10-15 minute slot, we know we have that time to discuss any issues that we may have. And I think as we discussed, communication is very important. And I think once we have everything laid out or the expectations laid out, I think it will only be beneficial for us and to ensure that we are successful um, during our training. So I think probably just requesting, a meeting, a weekly meeting, like a 10-15 minutes once per week where we could just, just discuss any things with any concerns we may have can really be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And you saying that reminds me that the 20 weeks goes by fast, right? So setting that parameter kind of at the beginning, or that expectation or that request to meet weekly, I think is important, because if 3 or 4, 5 weeks go by, that's a big part of your experience already. So you make a really great point that, before there's even an issue or before there's something you don't understand, setting up that time with your supervisor on a regular basis can be really critical. Thank you. I don't see anything else in the chat. I don't know, Hannah, if I'm missing anything in the chat, please just jump in, let me know.
I think we just had a comment from Sherry just to ask for clarification, which is definitely what we want to do in that scenario.
Right.
I also just wanted to add, it's normal to have questions and to not know everything. You're still learning, and that's what the practicum's all about. So don't be afraid of asking those questions. It's important to ask those questions, and it's also important to acknowledge you're not going to know everything. You're a student, you're learning. That's what the practicum is all about.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, I've got one more question for you before we take your questions. So I know you're waiting patiently. I asked you in the beginning, what does professionalism look like? So I'm going to take that a step further now and ask, what does a professional work product look like? So again, if you want to throw some words in the chat, some characteristics of a professional work product, or feel free, to just kind of come on and shout it out. That's fine as well. But when you think about the artifacts you're creating, what does a professional work product look like to you? Giovanna, I see your hand up. I'm not sure if that's from before or not, but if it's for now, feel free to jump on in.
Nope, that was from earlier. Sorry.
Oh, okay, no worries. Oh, and hi, Amanda. Yes, I'm sorry you had challenges getting it. It is being recorded, so we can provide you with the recording afterwards. Thanks for joining us, though. Any thoughts on a professional work product? Maybe think to feedback you've received from instructors before on something submitted, or even, in your job now.
I have one.
Yes, please.
When you're creating something like an artifact, it's supposed to be useful not only to you but to other people in the company. So when you're thinking about what you're going to include or whatever, it should be something that will be used as a tool.
That's exactly right. And that's that sort of mutual benefit, right, that we talked about, is that you want to make sure whatever you're creating is going to be usable and useful. Excellent point. Any other thoughts?
And if it's going to be effective and usable, what do you need to make sure, well, it doesn't have or it doesn't include? Once again, we bring this up because I review a random sample of these artifacts that students produce during the practicum. I have to submit these to the accreditation body. So as the program director, I'm really hoping you guys are creating quality, good pieces of work, because this reflects on me and everyone else involved here. And most of what I see is great. It's outstanding. But unfortunately, there's always a handful of people who turn in work that is not professional and does not look too good.
Yeah.
And is not complete.
Yeah, complete is important. And I'll give you a few hints here as well. Basics like proper spelling and grammar. I think, unfortunately, today we either take that for granted or we don't put as much weight to it as we should. But something that is professional should not look like a text that you sent to a friend, right? It should look like something that was really well thought out, proofread many times, maybe even using a template as an idea, to start with something professional looking. Clarity is important. And that's part of, the work that you're doing throughout your courses for your practicum too, is take the feedback that you receive, especially when it comes to the presentation of your ideas and your materials, and put them to use as you continue to move forward.